Welcome to the RVA Returners Podcast, your weekly source for all things Final Fantasy TCG.
But yeah, Collin, 8 a.m. is our normal kind of thing here on the way the morning we do the cast, just because I have to work on Sundays, which isn't my favorite thing to do, and I kind of want to quit. I'm not gonna lie.
That is a bummer.
It's a super bummer. But Collin, and I was gonna say, you know what isn't a bummer?
What's not a bummer?
Here for the next episode of the RVA Returners podcast. Boys, we're back.
God, I'm so excited.
You should be. Guys, I am your host, Chris Adams. With me, as always, Adam Lane. And as you heard, we've got a super special guest on with us today. No stranger to the cast, a longtime friend of the podcast. Collin, I think we really first met you back in Boston last year, and I've already said your name. I've spoiled it for everybody.
Collin was at ARG.
He was, really?
Yeah.
I was at ARG.
Well, I'll be damned.
But I didn't actually meet you guys there.
Well, that soothing sound you're listening to, that's our first North American qualified Worlds player, Collin Rupert. Collin, say hi to everybody today.
Hey guys, what's going on? Longtime fan.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yep, first-time caller.
Well, excellent, man. We're actually glad to have you on. I know it's been a very, very busy week for you. I know you were just on the Crystal Tower cast earlier this week. I'm sure I see you're still, you're still doing the things you normally do, Collin. I know you've got a tournament today that you're going to, so the grind doesn't stop, does it?
No, not for me. I love the game that I play, so I'm just passionate about it. So I want to just put the time in and, do my due diligence for the North America team.
Geez, you see that's a work ethic you can set your watch to. Love that. And speaking of that, we got a lot to talk about today. Some really, really big pieces of news, coming out. We've got our North American Octagon Open Top 8. There was an event over in Japan that's going on now. Some cards were spoiled. The first, there's so much. Collin, I know you're like me, right? Adam, I know you are like me as well. You just want somewhere you can go where you can get all this information, just kind of one-stop shop. Kind of like the Costco of information. Get your ID cards out, because you can't. You just can't walk into this place. Collin, do you have any idea of what we're talking about here?
The Cheers bar, where everybody knows your name. No, go ahead.
You're so close. You're so close. It's the news. All right, so first piece of news this week. The promo mystery has now been solved. The elusive 028 promo has now been revealed, and it's comes with a very neat Square Enix store exclusive package. Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about this thing?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's like an art book for the card game. It's weird that it took this long. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure out why they chose this to be promo. I don't know. But it is. I guess now we finally know what it is. Mm-hmm. And I guess apparently they had this in chapters too. Like people were telling me. I wasn't really aware. But it's basically just it's actually a playable sideways promo, which the other ones aren't. So that's kind of weird. But it's just a 3CP Light Warrior of Light that gets buffed by other category anniversary cards.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, like I said, in chapters they had several of these, so you could play them. But I think they were all light cards, so have fun with that. If someone like Heka's your Materia or Archer's your Cosmos, you probably just lose.
So what you're saying is this promo will be playable in 2024.
It probably won't even be playable then. I mean, you could play it, but I just don't know why. In a competitive environment, I don't know why you would. But it's cool looking. It's I think the old Amano style art on it.
Which is obviously beautiful, but you also get 9 of these cards or something like that. You get a bunch of different languages. Is that right? Or do you just get the one?
No, you get, I think it's 8 different languages. It's either 8 or 7. It's one of those two. But yeah, you get one. I think they're all foil, and it's one from each language. So people might be trading their other languages to get a playset of the language that they use the game in. It's possible. I'll probably just keep the one copy of each. I'm not going to ever play it.
It's a cool shelf piece, right? Collin, what do you think about a little product like this? Because obviously, the book has You know, it has the list of like the world, like the first like world qualified players, full art of Opus 1 through 4. What do you think of something like this, man?
Oh, I think it's great. It's like the first of its kind, right? Because
Hmm.
we haven't actually seen like an actual package with like all of the cards from each language in it. You always had to like go out and find people that were in the area that had the particular language released, and then you'd have to go and trade with them either through some like third party or online through the marketplace or whatever. But
Hmm.
I think this is a great way to not only get people that are interested in just the lore of Final Fantasy, like they always play the games, don't really know much about the TCG. Oh, all of a sudden, Square Enix has a product to promote it. Now you got people that are just kind of curious, and it starts that domino effect, train rolling. Like, oh, let's try to go out to some stores and see if they have this thing, and maybe build a community there, and hopefully create some kind of positive outlook for not just newer players, but for the people that collect and are currently playing the game. I think it's also great because they have now they have a really neat package to really add to their collections. They can use some of these cards to trade for other stuff they want. So I think it's a great way to not only promote the game to the newer players, but also for the longtime fans. They have access to something that they can just put on their shelves and collect as memorabilia.
Absolutely, and it's very attractively priced too. Again, it's a Square Enix store exclusive, and I want to say after shipping, because shipping is pretty nutty on the Square Enix site. I want to say it ends up being like $45 after shipping.
Yeah, it's like right
Yeah,
around 50, I think. Yeah, it's like the price of all their like art booky type stuff. You might be able to. I wouldn't recommend it, but sometimes their art books get on Amazon at some point, and they get a little bit
Mhm.
cheaper. If this is anything like the Final Fantasy 14 like lore books, which I would probably make it more akin to, those are going to be hard to find. So I would, if you want it, I'd pre-order it.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's worth the price.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely worth having. And so speaking of worth having, we spoke last week or the week before about the LQ trophies, those beautiful Dissidia like circle, artwork. So we got our first announcement. LQ Wave 1 is here. And there a lot of stores that were expected to get them got them. There were some glaring omissions at Richmond, but there's also 2 more waves, I believe. I want to say they're doing 3 waves of LQs this season.
Yeah, I think that's what was
That's what I
said.
heard.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That means we're probably going to get a fair amount more than we got last year, which is good. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I heard the Richmond thing is actually more on us than them. So
Well, it's very interesting. It wouldn't, I'll never put anything past anybody.
yeah,
Jersey's got one down in Yorktown, so we've got one still right in our own backyard, which is great because they've done great work down there, and they definitely deserve getting some more like official recognition. Um, let's see, Game Theory down in North Carolina, which we've gone to many times. They run a great operation down there. They've got one in the first wave, and Colin, I believe a little store up in Pennsylvania got one as well. Gamers Heaven.
Yeah, the store I belong to and got our LQ for the first wave, so we were really really happy about that.
Absolutely.
I'll actually be judging that event.
Oh, awesome.
Andrew Good is stepping aside, and he is busy that weekend
Hmm.
and won't be available. So he asked me to do it. I think it's good for me to do it anyway. Like I'm not going to be participating or anything. I want to give everybody a fair chance to make it out to nationals. Not to say I would win that event. I'm just saying like it would just be really kind of a little bit sucky to go on and win the event and then not have one more person be available to go to nationals from
Right.
everybody who traveled or wants to participate in that specific LQ. So I'm not just doing it for like my store, specifically, but for other players that or people that want to travel and go up at our store. They have a fair chance as well. So
Right. Sounds like you'd rather judge than gatekeep, essentially.
yeah, I don't do that sort of thing. I don't really believe in gatekeeping.
Hmm.
To be honest, even last year when we were still in the qualifier season for nationals, yeah, I've had this discussion many times with a lot of different people. Like, uh, I'm a firm believer that you have to tough it out and work towards it. And if you play an opponent that's already qualified and you can't beat them, then I'm of the opinion that you can't be there and do well.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
that's just my take.
That makes perfect sense. All right, so there's a lot to look forward to there. Good luck to everybody going out to those. I know we'll be going to play in some of those. We got three really in our own backyard. We love making the drive up to see you guys in Pennsylvania. It's a really easy drive too, so we love that. Game Theory, we love going down there. That's just a great store with a great group of guys. And then jerseys.
That's the North Carolina one, right?
Yeah, that's Hunter's store.
Nance's store, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they do good work down there. They run a really, really tight ship. And then obviously jerseys is really, really coming into their own. It's becoming one of my favorite places to go play cards here in Virginia as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously as those kind of come and go, we'll start getting Wave 2 and Wave 3 announcements. So, we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled on those. Speaking of events, another great event is transpiring. There's we've now made it down to the top 8 of the North American Octagon Open. I've got that list of names right here, and we'll just kind of work our way from top seed to the 8th seed. Sitting in top seed going into Swiss, we've got Mr. Curtis Kang, newest member of the RVA Returners. 2nd seed, we've got Mohammed Zaim, newest member of the Cards of Evilise team, also Virginia representative. Third seed, we've got the Ranch Master Hunter Nance himself. 4th seed, we've got the Jersey boy. We got John Schreiner, who was just on the cast last week. 6th place, we have 5th seed, we have Chris Neal. Did the old Cinderella man himself from last year, doing the LQ2 Nats, which was to the Worlds team. 6th seed, we have Collin Rupert. Never heard of him. Now, Collin Rupert there, you are in the 6th seed. And then 7th seed, we have Angel, is it Moray?
I think that's how you say it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with him at all, and I super, super apologize, Angel. You're clearly a top-notch player. You're up here in elite company. And then in 8th seed, we have Mr. Alex Ziegenhurt, squeaking into top 8. I believe he was the only X2 on this list.
I think so, yeah. I think everybody else is X1. I could be wrong with them.
Congrats to that.
Or no, Angel's X2.
Is he? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
So 2 X2s.
He's actually from the Boston crew.
Is he?
So
Okay.
Had a lot of opportunities come down south for some tournaments, but he's a very, very good player.
Awesome. That's good to know, man. Like I said, I feel terrible, but if he's clearly a good player, given that this field was full of killers. And Adam, I know you barely missed the cut there for top 8. Do you know what your final placing was?
Yeah. No. It wasn't 9th. I think if I win, I'm in contention to be one of the X2s because my 2 losses are going into that round. My 2 losses were John and Hunter.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So my losses were really good. I think I ended up falling somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 18, I think, or something like. I was the 2nd or 3rd highest X3.
Oh, gotcha.
I think Zach ended up being the highest X3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was either right behind him or one behind that next one. So I think if I could beat Wayne, and Wayne ended up being 16th exactly, I think.
Oh, okay.
But my deck bricked really, really hard. It was bad, really bad.
Well, other than last round breakings, guys, overall, how has this experience been? I know it was a free tournament with some really dope prizing. Adam, I know we kind of talked to you about it, a couple weeks ago. But as it's progressing, it's kind of coming down the home stretch here, guys. How has it been for you? Would you do this again as a free tournament? Would you rather see it be a paid tournament with maybe a bigger cut, a top 16, or just kind of give me some thoughts, guys. Kind of spitball it here for me.
I enjoyed it for what it's worth. I like online tournaments, but I thought it was a little tedious, but it couldn't be helped because it was spread out over the course of many rounds, and not everybody can organize and play on the same days. So waiting for other players to return the results over many days was I think time consuming for that aspect of it. But overall, I had a positive experience. I got to play a lot of different players, a lot of different decks. I like the fact that you were able to change the decks during Swiss rounds and not play the same thing every single round. That was actually kind of cool to me because I think you don't necessarily have to lock in a deck for Swiss because, like, as we all know, Swiss probably doesn't matter as much as like the top cut if you make it. So like being able to like do something free online and be able to like test different builds, whether or not you make it or not is irrelevant. Like if you have the ability to like just try out different things that you enjoy playing or want to see do well in a competitive environment and want to take to your next tournament, like that to me is more invaluable knowledge than trying to just jam and make top cut and get all these sweet prizes. So that was kind of like the cool thing for me. Adam, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely do it again. As for the top 8, top 16 thing, like I understand there was like 90 people, but like I mean I the card games I used to play, like it was always a top 8 cut no matter what. So that doesn't bother me. I know that bothered some people. Like I knew what I had to do to get in, and I think everybody else knew. So once you got that third loss, like you were done. You could pack it up, and even that second loss, like if you got it early, you were probably done too. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I played. I think like almost every person I played, I knew or knew me, which was kind of cool. And yeah, like switching the decks up, I got to play like 3 or 4 different decks, which was a lot of fun. I tried Final Fantasy VII one time, got smashed by Hunter, and went back to what I was playing before. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people were on Mono Water. A lot of people were on a deck very similar to what Collin won. Like as soon as Tampa was over, I felt like every round I played was Mono Water after that. And not that I blame them. So the deck is really strong. So
I have funny input about that. So I actually got back when I got back from Tampa. Of course my real life stuff was like just getting back on point and getting back to the routine and everything. But it was just a madhouse of messages from people like, what do you think about this build in Mono Water? What do you think about this build in Mono Water? And I was like, oh my goodness! Like I can't even answer all these messages. Actually, I still have messages in my inbox that I haven't gotten to because I just haven't had the time to revise lists and give opinions on things. But the deck is insanely strong if you know how to pilot it correctly. And I didn't actually play, going back to the Octagon tournament, I didn't actually play Mono Water the entire time. I played 2 or 3 rounds with Earth Wind, and then the other 4 rounds were with Mono Water. Because I didn't want to just overload the entire tournament with the same deck I just had gotten back in one with. I wanted to try out another build that I've been toying with and revising. So that was kind of like my tournament round, Swiss round experience.
Now, for top 8, are you locked? Whatever deck you choose for top 8, is that you're locked into that for the remainder of top 8?
Yep, they lock in today.
You have to submit a deck list, right?
Yeah, they lock in today.
Yes. Okay, so you have to submit it early then.
I actually I have to go. Well, I'm going to the tournament today, but I gotta get the list together online, and then I'm gonna send it over to I guess whoever's running it, Lawrence or Nicolo.
Okay, nice.
So,
nice.
I actually have to crunch some numbers today, and while I'm actually playing, and see what I want to do for my final deck list. But
nice. Well, definitely good luck to you there, man. I know, like I said, you got a top 8 here full of really, really solid players. So it's like really, this is anyone's event. So, so you're going to be playing against Hunter first, if my bracket math serves me correct, right?
Yes, sir. We actually talked last night for a few minutes about that.
The Tampa rematch, it sounds like.
Maybe.
I like Hunter. I'll be happy to play him for my first round and cut.
I could probably bet you won't see Death Machine.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, he will not be playing Death Machine.
Yeah, I bet my career on that one. Yep.
Indeed. Well, like I said, Collin, good luck to you, man. It's just anybody's match, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top of this one. Next, speaking of events, there's a event going on in Japan right now. Obviously, they're like 22 hours ahead of us or something like that, or something absurd, because it started streaming last night at like 10:30 our time.
Yeah, it's a 3-day tournament. But yeah.
Okay. And I know I had fully intended on staying up last night to watch it. lights out. Right when it was getting ready to start, I just rolled, my head hit the pillow, and then next thing I know, it's 6:45. So I missed that. But we'll talk a little bit about that. Something really neat to come out of that. Another supplemental product here. Another 2-player starter set with some more legendary reprints and a couple of really solid starter exclusive cards. I know we can see what it's a hero, another like kind of heroes versus villains style, it looks like, but looks like it has a Final Fantasy 3 kind of focus because it's Cloud of Darkness and Onion Knight.
Yep.
So before we get into like the reprints that are in here, Adam, I know you've got them pulled up. Let's kind of, because Colin hasn't seen them yet. Let's go ahead and read what both of these cards do.
Sure. So they're both 3CP 7Ks. Cloud of Darkness is dark and Onion Knight is light.
Mm-hmm.
So Cloud of Darkness, what her text is, at the end of your turn, remove the top card of your deck from the game. For each card removed by Cloud of Darkness gains 1,000 power. When Cloud of Darkness leaves the field, you can choose one card removed by Cloud of Darkness and put it in your hand, and the rest go into your break zone. So the Onion Knight is, when he deals damage to your opponent, you can search your deck for one card named Onion Knight and add it to your hand. And then he has 2 S abilities. For just S, he gains 1,000 power, haste, first strike, and brave until end of turn. And then for his other S, it's S and Dull. Choose a 4, deal it damage equal to Onion Knight's power.
I think both of these cards are actually really solid. I love the Cloud of Darkness and the fact that it kind of gives you another zone to, because now are these cards like visible to both players, that kind of thing?
Remove from game zone is always visible.
Okay, so that's fine. I mean, that's still information, but it's still like a card. Like if your opponent sees like a bunch of gas that's been removed from the game by this card, it becomes something they have to deal with. So I think that card's really, really neat, and obviously she just gets bigger off of that. And I think the Onion Knight's really, really cool. Obviously there were those decks where, like the Wind Lightning decks, where you were using the legendary Onion Knight, which is a good segue to, I believe he's in the set as well. Being able to do that, like attack with it, get all these keywords, then S ability, kill something. Like I think the cards are really, really neat. The Onion Knight feels like a really dope build around card. Colin, what do you think of these cards?
My thoughts on the first card, the Cloud of Darkness. It definitely is very, very strong. 3CP 7K is your natural power you want to see on a 3CP card, but the replacement effect you gain off of it, the longer it just lingers in play, it's like one turn you could potentially have like 3 extra cards on top of your normal draw. So like I could see this card being very, very powerful.
And it's searchable off Camelot.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It is searchable off Camelot, but at that point, like I guess we're really only gaining the best value off of it, maybe off the Star Sybil, like in the Camelot to get it, or just like naturally playing it. But I think later in the game, it actually is very kind of weak in the respect that like it's not actually initially getting you value when you and your opponent are kind of like trading 5 for 5 on backups. So there is that one aspect of the card that worries me for like the late game, but for the early mid game, yeah, I definitely agree. Like slamming this down like turn 2 or 3 is just fantastic. So I could see that being a potential card, and we also don't know, what's going to be in the future sets to really kind of go along with this. So I'll be excited to see like how that tournament events plays out. And then I guess going into Onion Knight, the late 3CP 7K, again, standard, power for a 3CP forward. I don't like the aspect of running multiple Onion Knights in a deck just to fuel this card, because I feel like this card's kind of like a more build-around-ish type forward. But I do like the fact that you can actually search either a Wind or a Lightning Onion Knight and add it to your hand when it attacks. So this is like, super great for like Wind Lightning, obviously. Like if you're able to, just run like all the Onion Knights, that archetype is potentially, going to get powerful and make the deck a lot better. I do like that the specials are just really cheap though. Being able to have a special that's the cheapest cost to activate it is probably where you want to be if you're playing a deck with those type of forwards, because like when you start getting into forwards that like start having special abilities that you have to overpay for, then you start, waiting around turns if you don't have one, and then by the time you activate it, it might not be relevant to the board. So like there's always those really awkward situations where you're just like, oh, I have this really cool, light forward with like these really awesome light special abilities, but like I can't use them, so therefore it doesn't matter. Now I'm just playing this vanilla 3K or 3CP 7K forward. It becomes a little bit awkward, and that's always been the issue with the special abilities. I think in the competitive world, like if you go to tournaments, you'll see very, very limited amounts of special abilities between like all the deck lists for like, I feel like the last like year. There's pros and cons to both, as there are always with light and dark cards. But I do think Cloud of Darkness actually kind of trumps the Onion Knight one.
For sure. Opinion. Adam, what do you think?
So I think the Onion Knight is going to be nutty in title, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're thinking about that format. But yeah, I agree pretty much with everything that Collin said. I think the Cloud of Darkness is probably going to see more standard play. And I'm interested to see like how strong it really is. Because the thing is, like, the last few sets, like, we've got a big increase in like the power of light and dark cards.
Yeah, big time.
So I'm interested to see like where these fall. It's hard for me to say, but I do think Cloud of Darkness is the clear like winner out of these two. Onion Knight, like you said, is more of a build around card, but I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze there.
Oh, that's a good saying on this podcast.
Yep, I like that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a cool build around card. Like, I wouldn't be mad if someone wanted to make a deck like that and try to make it work. But I'm not seeing it yet. And this is Opus 10, so like these are 2 sets away. So there's more cards that we need to see too.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the surface of this 2-player set. We're also getting some really, really gnarly reprints here. I know just the ones that were mentioned: 7 CP Phoenix,
yep.
Opus 5 Diabolos, Opus 4 Legendary Lightning, more commonly known as Chicken Lightning, and Opus 5 Legendary Cecil.
Yeah, and the Opus 4 Onion Knight Legend as well.
Yes, and the Opus 4 Onion Knight, the Wind one.
Yep.
And this could be a big assumption, but we've seen the Phoenix looks like it's full art. Is it safe to assume that the rest of these are going to be full art?
My assumption, again, this is an assumption, is that they're all non-foil full arts.
I'll tell you what, getting a full art Cecil really, really revs my engine. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I know you like them Earth cards, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Especially that Cecil. That Cecil's one of my favorite cards in the game. So these are obviously really big reprints. Now, granted, yes, there's going to be a whole nother set coming out before we see these. So this is super, super early. And who knows? This could end up being subject to change for all we know. What do you guys think about seeing these? Because a couple of these are some pretty high dollar cards in here. Do you think? And I've kind of said this before, kind of in passing, that I really feel like if you're looking at non-foils, you really just need to not try to work the secondary market in this game, and that's because I feel like that's just like there's a lot less regard for the secondary market in this game than there is for something, say, like Magic, where like the secondary market kind of drives the game essentially. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, to me, it's been clear for a while, right? Like, if you really want to, if your goal in this game is to like drive the secondary market, you do it in foils and exclusive promos and stuff like that. Non-foils are kind of like whatever the flavor happens to be, like Veritas right now, right? Like, you could sell a Veritas right now for a good amount of money. But if Veritas, like the meta becomes not Veritas at some point, like, he's obviously going to drop. And if he gets reprinted, he's obviously going to drop even more, like, if that ever happens. Yep. And you know those things. And I think they're trying to kind of make that better by making these full arts, because that way maybe there's still value in the non-foil versions. Because I will say, like, if you've ever felt, like, the new promos, right, they're pretty great looking, but have you ever felt the difference between a foil and a non-foil version? It's like, you can feel the difference. And so I'm not sure if that quality difference is going to be here as well. It's possible, and so maybe that might help it keep value. But if you look at VVs, right, like, what are VVs now? 15 cents?
Yeah.
Like, VV tanked real hard, and I think Genesises are like a couple bucks.
Mhm.
So, but their foils are still worth money. Like, I think foil VV is still somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12, and foil Genesis is still like around the 20 mark. So, those are holding value because the starter sets don't have foils in them. The promos will hold value, at least certain promos, the playable ones, and the exclusive ones, obviously, because they're either exclusive or very playable. But even then, like, the non-foil promos aren't worth really much at all. Like, you can easily get those for a couple bucks. The foil promos, now you're looking at like $25, $30.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, like, it makes the game more accessible, in my opinion. And if we're going to never have a rotation, we're going to need stuff like this. Because if not, new players, it's going to be a nightmare for them. Here's the issue, though, is that how accessible is the starter deck going to be? Because the Heroes and Villains starter is, like, really hard to find. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
No, those are all very, very relevant takes. Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, in terms, see, it's hard because like I'm talking about in terms of like getting new players involved with the game, and players that don't have access to some of these cards and like want to get into the competitive environment more, or just want to go out and get these cards that they haven't had for a really long time to like finish up their decks that they want to take. I think it's great for the health of the game. You want to get more people involved, and this is how you do it. I would agree with Adam. No, like I do wish the starters were more accessible across the board in terms of availability for like stores to sell them at reasonable prices. So that is one thing I would like to see change for the future. But I pretty much agree with everything that Adam said about card reprints in terms of value. It does suck for the people that kind of had to work for their non-foils that were around for Opus 5 and later. They spent all this money on these cards, and now they're just going to get reprinted in these starter decks. It's a little unfortunate that that's going to happen in terms of the value of the card. But I will say that in terms of collecting, as long as the foils are around and non-foils are going to be printed, your foils are safe. So if anybody invested heavily into the foils or Opus 5, I still think the investment aspect of a player, you still have those value cards available, and this price is available to you for trading. They might go down a little bit, but not so much. In terms of trade value, it's more just like monetary value. So if you're a collector, yeah, it's a little bit of a downer, but for the most part, I still think your investment is safe and it's still worth it. I mean, you think about when these starter decks are going to be printed. You've had Diabolos and Cecil and Phoenix for like now well over a year. So I mean, you've gotten your money 10 times over with these cards back, in terms of playability, if you were, playing a lot during the season. So, I do think it's a positive thing. I think we do need it for the health of the game and the span of, as long as people are going to still be playing these cards by Opus 10 release, they're going to have these available to them. So that's a positive thing in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I think you guys just hit the nail right on the head. Not really much more to add to that without sounding redundant. But I agree with you. I think it is good for the health of the game. I love it when the price of cards, especially if you're late to the party, isn't driven by the secondary market. Again, using Magic as a perfect example. Good luck trying to get into Modern without shelling out $1,000 because you have to pay, $50 a piece for Noble Hierarchs if you want to play humans or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll say one more thing too. Like, so I think the issue Magic has, and this is outside looking in a little bit, right, is that precedent was never set, right? So
correct.
If they reprint Magic cards now, there's going to be a ton of backlash. This is a set precedent now. Like, we know it's happened twice, so like we know these things are going to continue to happen. So like, don't put all your if your eggs are in the basket of reselling non-foil legendaries that are staples. Just be wary. They might become full arts or something in a starter deck as a non-foil, and
Literally, what the point I was getting ready to make is you nailed it right on the head.
Yeah.
Nailed it right on
And
the head.
I would rather that precedent be set now than wait, years and years and years, and then everybody gets mad at it,
Exactly.
Also, be aware if you're buying as well. People that are aggressively buying non-foils, it's still a thing too. It's a two-way street.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is very, very true. So that was all attached to this. I forget the city they were in, but I guess I've just seen it called the Japan Cup.
It's like Nagota, I think, or something like that.
Nagoya.
Yeah.
Nagoya. And I know they've had a really awesome Final Fantasy 15 playmat, more awesome Final Fantasy 15 sleeves that I would love to get my hands on as well. But I want to say all of day one was draft.
No. So day one was actually a couple days. So you missed day one.
Okay.
Yeah, day one was, I think...
I'm so behind the loop on this thing.
I think day one was double deck constructed, actually, because I think I saw Alex had 2 decks. I could be wrong, because I didn't get to watch much of it either, but I know there was a day one. And then day 2 was draft. So it was like a split Swiss, I think. So
okay.
I want to say, well, kind of like how they do here. I want to say, like, they made a cut, and then that cut got to play draft, and then they cut to 12 after that. And I don't know the exact cuts. So
right, and I know Alex Hancock's is like the 7th seed, and Tim is the 9th seed, I believe. And I know the way, at least all I know is there's a top 12 cut, and the top 4 just move right into top 8.
Yeah, they get a bye.
Yeah. So, and I know it's not cross pod play, like it's inter pod. The draft was inter pod play, which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that you're starting to see events now that have like a lot more dedicated draft. Especially I know like when this whole thing first kind of came up, it was very like out of nowhere. It felt very seat of the pants. But it seems like these last couple, or especially at least this set in general, and Opus 7 to an extent, while Opus 7 like pre-release rules were very, very miserable, it actually ends up being a really, really good, proper limited set in the long run. Whereas Opus 8, I think, is a fantastic limited set. Yes, I agree. The bursts can be kind of below. I mean, when we were down in Tampa doing that lobby draft, you hit an Odin on burst or like a Chaos Walker on burst, you just kind of lose on the spot.
You have to. It forces you to play a certain way. I mean, Medine and Arc too. So like, you have to be careful. Like, it forces you to play kind of slow. If you try to play fast and you get burned by those things, you're just gonna lose on the spot. But if you play like a gentleman's game style, they won't hurt as bad. It still hurts, but it won't hurt as bad, and it can still lose you a game for sure.
Yeah, this draft, or at least this limited set, feels very haymakery in a sense, if that makes sense. And if you have some of those like haymaker pieces of removal, your opponent just turns into all shoulders, man. They just kind of shrug, and it's like, well, your turn, please. But it's good to see. I'm actually going to go back and make sure I watch all the stuff from this event because, like I said, it's at a really weird time, and with my work schedule, it's like I kind of have to catch it after the fact. But I'll keep my my eyes tuned to all the Facebook groups to kind of see what's up. And good luck to everybody playing over there. I can't wait to see what kind of spicy stuff comes out of this event. But really the point about the draft was kind of the segue into our main topic. And I know recently with I want to say is Portland draft or is Arizona the first one that's going to have draft?
I want to say Kansas City's the first one that has draft because it's Kansas City, Richmond, Arizona.
Okay, Arizona. Okay, so it goes Portland, Toronto,
Kansas City,
Richmond, Arizona.
Yeah, and the last 3 have draft.
Okay. So, and you're starting to see a lot more articles on this, and a great one to pull up. I know Meta Potion just had an article that was done by Kyle McGinty about really just mastering draft and really knowing what to look for. And I think it's something that now especially for people who are going to be coming to these later Crystal Cups, the Kansas Cities, the Richmond, these are going to be big ones. And I think really knowing how to, and these are still going to be Opus 8, mind you. I want to say Arizona is going to be Opus 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Arizona's the only one that's Opus 9 draft. Yeah.
So that's going to be a whole nother can of worms. But for the ones here that are going to be, Opus 8, I think really understanding, what you're looking at and knowing how to draft is going to be I think it's an important skill set to have anyway. And I'm not talking like, casual in a hotel lobby, pounding back the worst alcohol known to man in the middle of the night drafting. I'm talking like legit. You're sitting down at a tournament table with, where stakes are pretty high. You're talking there's a world spot here on the line. So, sending the right signals, making the right picks, understanding the archetypes that are going to be available to you in draft. Like, this is stuff that you really, really, really need to know. And I think having these resources now will help you be able to practice for these Crystal Cups coming up in less than 2 months, mind you. Because Kansas City is 2 months from now?
Beginning of June. Less than 2 months.
Okay.
Also, to touch on another point, if you don't mind me.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for the people that win the spots at the Crystal Cups for the world spot, those teammates will be invaluable to me because I'm not as familiar with draft as in this game as I am with, games like Magic. I not necessarily speaking like I won't be able to adapt to the format well. I'll certainly have, the practice leading up to this Crystal Cups, but those teammates will be, very invaluable to me to really show me the way in terms of like how to properly pick things and what to look out for and those types of things, those that do well in draft, obviously. So I'll be excited to see, what they make of it, once we get the full team together for Worlds. So
yeah, and I don't have any inside track on this or anything, but I would bet hard cash that Worlds will have something to do with draft. Like, there's no way it doesn't.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So it's definitely going to be a skill set. I think that whoever qualifies, yourself included, because you're already there, will need to have for sure. So
now, I guess here's my question. And I just thought of this. What are they going to do for, the language barrier? Are they going to all draft with the same language cards?
Well, that exists even in Constructed, right? You got Hunter doesn't know what red cards do. I'm sure at Worlds he had to double-check that stuff. So,
I'm sure they'll have, Oracle text on standby, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I would imagine since it's in America, since it's in LA, it'll probably be English cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so the foreign players will probably have to have some kind of double checking thing. Because with draft you're gonna read a lot more cards because it's stuff you don't see as often. So
from what I remember back to all the way to the first Worlds, I think they actually had they had folders available for in different languages for the people that didn't quite have a knowledge of all of the cards in the set, or they need to double check and reread something in their language. So I'm fairly certain they're going to have something like that, either electronic or physical in a binder where people from that qualify for Worlds from Japan or Singapore, if anybody from Asia is going, they're going to have something available for them to be able to double check or reread a card that they would normally be familiar with. So I'm pretty sure that you're going to have something there.
Absolutely, and it makes sense, right? So when we're looking at draft, and I think one of the best things we've kind of been doing recently. I know, Adam, you've been we've been doing a lot of pack one, pick ones, and I know you've been getting the packs and kind of switching things around to really make it some really unique and tough choices to me. I know the one you posted a couple weeks ago was one that it generated a lot of conversation, and B, there was 3 legitimate right answers. It just really depended on what direction you were trying to take, and there's so many different layers to what you're looking to do. So, guys, where I'm going with that is we're at a pod of 8, the 3 of us. We're sitting next to each other, or Adam, you're across the table. Collin, you're to my right. We're opening our first pack. We're passing to the left.
Mm-hmm.
What are you? Obviously, this is super subjective. We don't know what cards we're looking at here. We're talking signals now. This is where I've got to look at a pack, kind of understand what's in these packs, and kind of start looking at what's missing. Obviously it's only one card, so it could just be the rare that's gone, which could be anything, or it could be an uncommon that's gone. I don't know, when we start getting, and this becomes more and more important as you're getting deeper into the packs and into the rotation here. What is it you look for when you crack that first pack and you see cards that like you see a lot of good stuff. What do you pick, and what are you like trying, and what are you hoping to tell me, or hoping to not tell me, I guess, as you ship the pack my way?
Well, I guess the most efficient scenario to happen would be like, okay, there's one card in this pack that's like cheap, efficient. It's either a removal or like a really good forward, in terms of like, you know, its power level, and it's the only card in the pack in that color. So like obviously that's probably going to be the pick, because the goal with that pick would be like, hey, we're going to cut off this color completely for you know, you picking through that pack. And like, let's say it's just a win card. Like, let's say we go back to that one pack that you guys posted, the one with the Death Gaze in it, and like it had a whole bunch of like other playable cards. Like, I'm still sincerely certain I would probably still take the Death Gaze, mainly because yes, it was the only win card in the pack, but also like it was cheap, efficient removal. Like Death Gaze is like a great card for draft, I think. I mean, I haven't actually had the opportunity to draft Opus 8, but I last night I was watching the Japanese stream when they were playing the very first round, and the guy literally windmill slammed like 2 Death Gazes in a row, and like one from like an impossible spot, and that just shows you the power level of that card. So like in that scenario, yeah, I'm going to take the cheap, efficient removal and the only card in that CP element from that pack, because I don't want my opponents to see that color for the rest of the draft.
He didn't play 2 Death Gaze on the field at the same time, did he?
No.
Okay.
It was like the one got
removed.
It was the same Death Gaze. It just got bounced.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. No, he actually had another copy in his hand though, so he was actually playing 2. But I think that the first copy that he played got bounced, and like both players were like at a really high damage count. So like it actually just came down a second time. But for other scenarios where like your pack has like 2 really good lightning cards, or 2 really good fire cards, or 2 really good water cards, like that scenario gets a lot more difficult, because now you can't necessarily cut people off from those colors, but you also still have to keep in mind like what is your color identity per se in the game for draft. Like, do you enjoy playing lightning cards more than, you know, water cards, or do you enjoy playing wind cards more than fire cards? You know, it's a lot of it has to do with I think, you know, what you enjoy playing, and what you think is the best you know, CP in that particular pack, and what element is the best in that pack. So like I think a lot of it comes down to what element, you know, you see being very powerful for the pack that you have, and what card is the best card, you know, that you would want to see coming to you in that element for future packs. So a lot of it has to do with, you know, cutting things off, optimizing your picks efficiently, and just enjoying the element that you're playing for the draft at that particular time.
Absolutely. Now, Adam, we got you on the other side of the table here. You're opening your first pack. What are you prioritizing in that first pack?
I mean, it's kind of the same, right? You can know like your power cards going into the set, but you're still drafting against 7 other people, and so you have to like know based on what they're passing you, what you're passing to other people, like the signals that you're sending, like you said. And like Collin said, like if it's like one very strong card and that's the only in that element, it's really hard for your opponent, or you're not your opponent, but like, you know what I'm saying, like the guy to your left, to figure out like what you just took. And then it's going to be harder for other people around you to try to like hate screw you or anything like that, because it's harder for them to define where you are until later. I mean, obviously much later you can make pretty sound calls as to like where the people around you are in what. I do think if you're playing against 7 other people that are very knowledgeable about the power, like the cards in the set themselves, you can make a call based on like what people are going to draft more commonly. Like for instance, in this set, in Opus 8, I think fire and ice are actually very strong. And so you have to be careful if you get into fire. I think a lot of people are going to be trying to get into fire. I know that's weird to hear coming from like people that play a lot of like standard constructed. But fire stuff in this set is just really efficient. Brynhildr is really dumb. A Rohat really stupid, and those are common and a rare. So like you're gonna see those a lot. Even Archangel is a rare as well. Like those are gonna be cards you're gonna see often. And if you're not in fire, or you allow like 1 or 2 people at the pod to be in fire, there's a possibility that you're gonna see like several Archangels hit the table, and that's a card that you have to deal with like immediately. So. And then when you talk about crosspod, it gets even worse, which I'm kind of hoping that they kind of stray away from that. But like you can't, it's harder for you to control, because like if someone over on table X like lets that stuff pass, and you're on table Y, and then you have to play a guy from table X who has 5 Archangels, like that sucks. So
yeah, it kind of takes that skill set out of the draft.
Yeah, it makes it less. I wouldn't say it completely takes it out, because you're still. Like, the people at your table are still affected, but yeah, like, if you just have a table of, like, more inexperienced people, then, that can help someone that's experienced that just happens to be put there, if they're lucky enough, So, there's a lot of factors, and I think if you keep it inside the pod, it makes the factors less, so.
Sure. So now let's talk about, like, pieces of removal, right? Because I think having good spot removal or AoE removal is pretty important when you're talking about a limited format. What are some of the key pieces of removal that you hope to see as you're drafting?
I mean, Brynhildr for me is one of the better ones for sure. I mean, you have like your bursty stuff if you want to go that route, but like that's not really efficient. Like Odin's not efficient. You don't want to actually spend 7 on it. But if it flips off the top, like it's amazing, right? Brynhildr also has that same symbol at the top right, and it's going to kill most stuff that people are trying to draft. Like, look at the cards I just said, right? I mean, obviously an attacking Archangel is going to live, but like Aroha's dead. You have other cards, mostly like a lot of 3CP 7Ks you're going to see, and even like the power 4 CPs, if they have like really strong abilities, will be under curve as well. And that's why, like, but then you're also gonna have big cards like Omaru is really good. It's like a 3CP 9K, even though he has like that kind of tax effect.
Yeah.
You got cards like Lion. Actually, I didn't realize how strong that card was until I started drafting this set more. That card's insane. Like, you just play it for 3CP, like on her when your board's empty, and then you just, if they can't answer it, you just keep drawing cards, which is pretty nutty. And she's an 8K, so that's kind of hard to deal with.
I've been testing Lion and constructed in mono water for a couple days now, and I actually enjoy playing it over Ash.
Wow, that's actually pretty interesting. I believe it. I think she's actually pretty strong.
From the experiences I've had with her, she's very good like early and mid game, but like her late game ability is rather weak. I think I'd still rather have Ash in that situation, but sorry, I was digressing. I just thought it was interesting that you said Lion was good.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, that says a lot, right? If they're good in standard, they're probably most of the time, unless there's some type of build around card. Like if they're just innately good, they're going to be good in draft too. And I think Lion is just innately good when you play her on the board. Same with the Roha. Like, she just reads really well. The reason she doesn't get played in standard is because she's a red card. So like,
right,
And then I know we were kind of going on a tangent because I would talk about removal, but like, I was saying, like, you want removal that hits those cards. And Death Gaze is one that Collin mentioned earlier that, like, it hits everything for 3. Like, that's really good. I mean, yeah, there's a drawback, right? Because it's a monster, it stays on the board. You have to worry about cards that blow you out, like Amaranth. And cards that even can bump, like, you have to be expecting that, like Matoya and stuff like that. Even though you're able to replay your Death Gaze, like, that one turn could swing the game. Like, that they're able to get their forward back and reactivate their ETB or whatever.
And absolutely. And obviously, one of the things you talked about, a lot of the removal being very bursty. And that's the one thing you kind of can't control, right? Like, if you go up against that guy who, just drafted all of the 7-drop Odins and you hit 2 of them on burst, there's a good chance you probably just lose that game due to no fault of your own.
Like, if you don't play efficiently, like, if you just try to, like, push forwards out on the board and they have one of those things, which isn't that unlikely, you're going to lose, so.
Absolutely. Collin, any more thoughts on removal?
I definitely place Odin at like the least valuable parts of removal, but like I definitely agree. Like Brynhildr is very efficient. So that would be a high pick like Fire EX for me. So I pretty much agree with Adam. If you're going to look at removal, you want to look at like 3 CP, 4 CP removal slots, but 3 CP, I certainly think take over the 4 CP cost in any deck that you're going to be playing. So,
yeah, I agree with that. And now let's talk about when one of the things you're always looking at outside of removal are just big doofy forwards, big just bomb ass cards. What are some of like the limited bombs you're hoping to get?
In terms of bombs, I certainly think I definitely like Aroha a lot in Fire. But bomb is very like skewed, right? Because we're not just talking about like legends. We're talking about like heroes and rares and stuff. So I certainly think Lion is a bomb in my opinion in the water. It's a cost efficient forward in the color it's in. It starts out at an 8K, so it's already hard and trumps a lot of 3 CP removal. And it just wins the board overall, and you get the bonus of like you get to draw a card and discard a card, and fix your hand. So like cards like that, in my opinion, are bombs. But obviously, you're going to get like legends like Duncan is a bomb. Obviously we're going to pick that card in Fire for in Fire. But like there are. I can certainly see times when like we're not picking bombs too. Like we're not always going to have the bomb in our colors, going into the late part of the draft. And people will sometimes you'll be in that situation. You're like you look at your pack and it still has like a legend in it, and it's like, well, what is this card doing here? And like, how is this going to fit in my deck? Can I splash for it? If I'm like playing, Water Lightning, for example, and all of a sudden I see like a, Dark Fina, how do I incorporate that into my deck to a point where it's going to be resourceful to me? So it's just that idea of bombs is very skewed at some point in the draft, because like you're still going to have the chance of maybe something isn't going to be taking because like your the players to the left or right of you just aren't in those colors. It might be like third pack pick 2 or something, So like I can certainly see situations where that would happen. So it's kind of interesting to reevaluate cards as you're going later into the draft, because a bomb in your colors might just be like a common that you needed to fill in a slot that you wanted to fill in. So like bomb is very like vague at that point.
Sure. It becomes very subjective depending on where you're at in the draft.
Right, absolutely.
Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, there's the obvious ones. Like you're not passing a Veritas, right? Like that's never ever gonna happen. like unless you're crazy. I don't know, because like you can play that card for whatever CP you want, and it's always probably gonna kill something. And there's not really many ways that I could think of to really get rid of his exit trigger in draft. I guess Death Gaze, but like he's gonna come back, and that's probably worse for you. I think like you said, like later there's gonna be bombs that are subjective, right? Like I think people understand that wind is actually pretty good in this draft as well too. You got things like Northstalin and stuff like that. But I think, and people are starting to realize this too, like especially like in our area where we've been drafting a little. But like Selkie's actually pretty strong in draft. It's multi-unit, so you could like have more than one of them out. Sometimes you'll mill 2 cards that are like your opponent really needed. Sometimes you draw a card when it dies, and it's an 8K, which makes it a little bit harder to deal with. So, cards like that you look at face value and it doesn't seem very good, but in draft, like it's really good. So I think people need to kind of figure that out and learn that facet.
Absolutely, and that kind of leads to like I guess really the point I want to wrap up with synergies. Most sets that have a limited format in mind have kind of internal working synergies. One of the perfect examples in this set are the 15 guys, right? Which you can very easily draft all of them.
Yeah, you gotta get a little lucky, because there's some H's in there, right? Like Gladio and Noctis. But yeah, people probably aren't gonna take them as like their first picks, right? So like you could get those are H's that could easily get past you, but you do have to get a little lucky in the facet that like
Mm-hmm.
They have to appear, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. But there are, like, and then of course you've got like the Sabin, the Edgar. These are all printed at like common. So these are and then of course obviously Duncan. If that's kind of the payoff there. If you're able to, if you're able to draft that with a couple copies of the common Sabin, you're seems like you might be in good shape there. So talk to me about some of the synergies, kind of the internal synergies. You kind of talked to one a little bit there with Norstallin, Wall Trail, some of these, Crystal Chronicles backups. What other kind of synergies do you want to look for? Not necessarily just like category packages, but other synergies you can find within this limited environment.
I mean, I think you hit on a big one. Edgar is a pretty big one, I think. Like you have things like Umaru, like Celis, like the small Sabin, who's really good too on his own, right? Even without Duncan. And with Edgar, you're looking at him swinging and dealing 4K. I've had situations plenty of times where I'm in fire and I have a Sabin and a Rain, not the Legend Rain, and I'm party attacking and dealing 7K to something. That's removal. So. Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain synergies you can draft too. The earlier you get into those synergies, the better, because you can start planning around those things. But sometimes you have those accidental synergies. I think Edgar, because there's so many Final Fantasy VI cards in general, like Edgar and Setzer are probably, like, if you take them, you're probably going to get something out of them. Like, you can easily draft to them. Same with Norstallin. I mean, there's enough Crystal Chronicles backups in the set to where that card's not going to be, like, there's no way they can take all your options away from you.
Exactly.
And if you get Wall Trill, like, you're sitting pretty. If you get Charlotta, you're doing well. Those are the two biggest ones that stand out to me for sure. I mean, there are obviously like some dud synergies, like the mono synergy stuff, like Ifrit, and like those are kind of weak, I think. But like Ramu's not terrible and Shiva's not terrible. Those are okay.
Collin, what are your thoughts, man? So what kind of synergies are you looking for when you draft Opus 8?
Just a small synergy I was going to point out was just like Realm and Strago in water. Just because you know me, I like water cards, but I don't know how. It's very small, subtle thing, but I do think it's a synergy that is a possibility easily in those colors. So that's something I'm probably looking for. I'm looking for, like Adam was saying, like the whole Edgar Final Fantasy VI backups that interact with the forwards. So in that sense, if I'm going for that strategy, and I'm looking for those, I'm obviously going to be looking out for probably the 6 forwards and prioritize those more over the backups, because the backups are probably going to, have the opportunity to like get around and pass around to different people. So that is probably my prioritization for those cards. I don't know how you feel about that, but the forwards, I certainly think overtake the backup line in draft if I were to guess. But like I said, I haven't had the opportunity to really draft Opus 8 a lot. So a lot of it's going to be, a little new to me, but I think that is something that, I would argue in terms of just as a general rule for picking. Always prioritize like the forwards over the backups, but I could be wrong. This might be something that I might have to do a little bit of research on.
No, I think you're spot on. I think if you want to get to 5 backups if you can, so you're playing efficiently. But if they happen to do something after the fact or like when they enter, like that's great too. But your forwards are obviously going to get you home, like because you can't pick what backups you want, where you want them. You kind of like 2 CP backups are always going to be good for the element that you want, just because like you get them down, you don't really care what they do, even if you play them for no value.
And another synergy I'd be looking out for the Wind Warrior Light. Like obviously, if I'm gonna first pick that card out of the pack, my goal for that draft would be just draft as many standard units as humanly possible in the future packs that I see to optimize that card's ability.
Yeah, and Selkie's a big one.
Yeah, if you get your hands on Selkie and the Warrior Light, man, you're in great shape.
From what I hear, standard units are like really, really good in the draft environment, especially in Wind. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for something like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and like I said, we could definitely dive into more, but we are crunched for time. And Colin, you're actually on your way now. We hear the car opening and closing. You're on your way to a tournament. Just kind of real quick, tell us what tournament you got going on today, man, and we'll wrap up.
Oh, so I'm headed up to All in One Collectibles up in New Jersey with John
Mhm.
Schreiner and all those guys. I haven't been to one in like literally a year,
Mhm.
and they've been asking me to come up. So I thought this was like the perfect day to have the opportunity to do so, especially when it's like my day off and I didn't really have much planned. So
Nice. So is this the Zodiac tournament?
yeah. So they have
Oh,
like
nice.
for those of you not familiar with it, they have something called the Zodiac Trials up there, and they usually post quite frequently on the PA page, but I guess it's like the PA New Jersey Delaware page. But yeah, they have a really cool thing up there where they have one every month, and then at the end of the season, they invite all of the winners from the previous like cups to compete in like the final tournament for the year. Um, so you actually have to, it gives you incentive to actually try to win one of these things, and
Mhm.
also it gives you a qualification for like all the winners that come back and like have one final tournament to determine the winner of the year.
Absolutely.
And I
Sounds
think
very
it's on
similar to
for
what we're doing because obviously, Colin, as a previous Soldier Series champion, you'll be invited back for the Soldier Series finals as well.
Oh yeah, I like totally blanked on that. That was like way back last year. I think that happened. So yeah, I'll be definitely excited for that.
Yeah, I'll never forget our top four match when I played a Nidhogg into your 4 CPs a day, and I was like, I'm a fucking idiot.
I felt so bad for you when that happened.
Dude, I was like, I got him. I'm a fucking idiot.
Well, to be
All I
fair,
could do was shrug my shoulders. I was like, well, that's what I get for not reading the card.
in your defense, I mean the set was relatively new when it came out,
Hmm.
so we were just playing these cards for like the first time,
Hmm.
pretty much for the competitive season. So I mean, things happen. I mean, I'm no stranger to mistakes myself, man. Like if I can't count how many mistakes I've made against players or done in tournaments and just been like, oh my god, like that was literally awful. So
Oh, it was.
I have had those like stomach sinking feelings just go through me as well. So don't feel bad. It happens to everybody.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up on that, Adam. I know Colin said you're still relatively new to the draft environment. Adam, you're no slouch or no stranger when it comes to limited. If you were to give a piece of advice to people wanting to pick up and practice limited, what would that be?
I mean, just understand what all the cards in the set do. It's
Mhm.
pretty simple. And then know like if you understand value in tournament play, you'll understand value in limited. So
Mhm.
like just to know the basic stuff like what's on curve. Uh,
Mhm.
is this ability good? Like just know how to evaluate cards. And it's not like you have to be the best evaluator. Some stuff's pretty obvious. So
Also, going along with that, like I think as a newer drafter, um, I think one of the things that I'm going to do is actually, prioritize and set rules for myself about like what I'm going to do in these situations, like setting signals or picking a card that I think generally is good. I think isn't enough at a draft level. Like you have to be able to understand like when to optimize your picks in terms of cutting off the people next to you in colors or getting signals from your opponents and be like, okay, well, you know, my opponent next to me is obviously on wind. Like, how am I going to adjust my elements to kind of have an idea of how to battle against a wind deck? And really work on memorization. Like, I think memory is a very very important part of this game, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that you noticed like a lot of the competitive players, and I'm sure yourselves even just constantly look through people's break zones to kind of figure out like some numbers, like where they're at with their deck, like where their bombs are at, or what have they used in terms of cards that are like really really good against your deck or your archetype that you're on for the day. So
Mhm.
like memory for me is a big thing, and I'm going to work on not just memorizing cards, but also work on like memorizing, what I picked and what my opponents next to me have picked. So I think that maybe that's maybe more one of the more advanced things about draft that I don't think a lot of newer drafters will pay attention to. But for me, I know the whole gallop of the competitive realm, and I know that people at the highest level are going to be working on those type of things and those advanced tricks and tools to really get ahead of the competition. So like for me, that is one thing that I'll be working on.
Well, that's absolutely great, man. And Collin, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on today. Good luck in your tournament today. Make sure you tell all those boys that we said hello down here in RVA.
Hello.
And other than that, guys, any parting thoughts?
I got nothing.
Thank you guys for having me on. It's been a real blast. I always enjoy talking to you guys about the game and how to optimize everything that we do involving the game, whether it be draft or competitive play. And I will certainly tell all the New Jersey guys that you said hello and you missed them, and we'll get together soon for the next tournament or CC Cup.
Absolutely. And with that, guys, signing off for today. We will see you all next week.
Yep, see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening once again to the RVA Returners podcast. If you like this content and you want to hear more, check us out on YouTube at RVA Returners, and make sure you follow us on SoundCloud and check us out on Google Play and iTunes.